Ainsley Gray here. Well, we'll get to that, but first I wanted to say welcome and tell you a little bit about myself. Firstly, I don't use multi-placers, so if that is going to annoy you during this WIP Chat, then I am not for you, because I don't feel that I have enough control with multi-placers, so I very rarely use them. Yes, it takes me longer to finish a diamond painting, but I'm in really no hurry, even for the ones that I have planned out for gifts or whatnot. I plan it out fairly much in advance and then go from there. And if I need it done by a certain date, then I will start early enough and purchase it early enough. So that's just me, I know a lot of people do enjoy using multi-placers, and that's great. And maybe at some point in the future, I might try it again and go, oh, okay, well, now I see why everybody wanted to do the multi-placer thing. But as of right now, I am a single placer only. This canvas is Frozen by Diamond Art Club. I fell in love with it and could not wait to start it. So when it arrived, I kitted it up and I have slowly been working on it since then. Not exclusively, and I don't always have time to diamond paint every day. I try to make time, but I do other things and have other interests. So that's the first thing. Second thing is Ainsley Gray. Okay, so I am a drug and alcohol counselor, and as such, I work in a crisis center, so I am an essential employee, even when everybody else is not. It's just akin to being an employee at a hospital, a doctor, a nurse, that kind of thing. Any mental health crisis center would be the same way. I just happen to work in addiction, and the thing about people who have an addiction, whether, I know everybody jokes about, having a diamond painting addiction, and I kind of feel that, but at the same time, I deal with addiction that comes with using substances, either, drugs and alcohol, whether they were initially legitimate uses or, not. Addiction is addiction. And so I don't have anything against people who say they are addicted to diamond painting. But I tend to think that if they are addicted to it to the level that it causes consequences in their life, then they probably are addicted. And if it doesn't cause consequences in their life, then probably just really, really like it a whole lot. And the reason I make the distinction is because, and I make it now, but you will hear me over you know, period of time go, oh, I'm addicted to vanilla ice cream, or I'm addicted to coffee. Well, there is a little bit of that when it comes to coffee because it's a stimulant and it causes physiological dependence. That's neither here nor there. Point being is an addiction is something that you can't stop if you wanted to. And there are a lot of misconceptions about addiction. What does any of this mean for this? Not much, except to say that when it comes to working with people who have an addiction, a legitimate addiction that is causing a crisis in their lives, be it in my crisis center or any others, boundaries are not something that they are very familiar with, and they certainly don't want to respect those boundaries. And social media is such that, you can pretty much search up anybody on the internet and go, I wonder what they're doing. And especially if you have a geographical area with which to search by, and a first and last name, that certainly helps. Now, my clients have my first and last name. I'm a professional. I would not think to keep it from them. They have my geographic location in a broad sense. County, not town. And I'm sure there are a few, or more than a few, who have looked me up on Facebook or other socials. And, whatever they found, they found. My personal Facebook is, I don't post a whole lot. What I do post is very recovery oriented, or mental health, healthy mental health oriented, or just, things about being courteous to each other and things of that nature. So, and all of that is not public anyway. So they can see who I am, where I grew up. That's pretty much it. So where did Ainsley Gray come from? Well, I do a lot of creative things because creativity is what helps balance me and have more to give out in my day-to-day life. And I write creative writing. I'm working on a novel. And I didn't necessarily, particularly because certain details of my life, and I'm not going to mention which ones, but certain details of my life end up in my stories. You write what you know, right? So, and I did not want to ever be at a parent-teacher conference and, start talking about literature and go, oh, you're that person. And then have to go from parent role to I am an author role. Now, I'm not published. I'm not entirely sure that I want to be published. It's something that I go back and forth on. But Ainsley Gray was the pseudonym that I came up with that I really, really liked, and I decided if I was ever going to publish, that was the name that I was going to use. So when it came to doing the YouTube stream, and I thought long and hard about whether I wanted to do it at all, and I'll get into that a little bit more later. But I knew that if I did decide to do it, that I would not be using the professional name that I practice under, for the reasons that I have mentioned. So, but I am also a genuine person, and I did not want to pretend to be or call myself something other than what I am. My name is Julie. It's a fairly common name, but that's why it's under Ainsley Gray. As far as other things, when the best way to approach how I find myself recording my first video, and it's kind of a long story that has a couple of different pieces that fit in, so I'm just gonna go with it and hope that I don't go on too much of a tangent. Talking to the camera is not the difficult part, although I am finding it difficult to concentrate on what I'm saying and what I'm doing, and, you know, chew bubblegum and walk at the same time. I got into diamond painting last summer. I had to put my dog down. She was quite old, and she had gotten very ill, although when we took her to the vet, we didn't know she was as ill as she was. She just wasn't perking, and she just wasn't perking for a couple of days. And we went, yeah, there's something not right. So we took her to the vet, and unfortunately it was a situation of we could maybe put her on pain meds intravenously, and her quality of life would be way, way down, or we could euthanize her. And as hard as that decision was to make, I still think we made the right one. So we euthanized her. But while we were sitting in the vet's office for as long as we were sitting in the vet's office, and it was a very long day, I was trying to keep myself distracted from what was going on by scrolling through Facebook. And I had seen a few different ads on Facebook for diamond painting or paint with diamonds, or, you know, there are 100 different names and 1,000 different stores. But the ad I saw was for Diamond Art Club, and I'm not one to spontaneously do things, especially when it comes to picking up a new habit or starting a new craft. So I researched it a little bit, did some research on YouTube, and I did some research on the web, and looked into what this whole deal was. And I had seen ads for Diamond Dots and didn't realize it was the same thing. I'm not much of a TV watcher, and I'm not on Facebook as often as I probably could be. But anyway, I started doing some research, and I went, this seems kind of neat. I think I'll try this. And so I applied for the kit that you just pay shipping for. Wow, this Patty Wax SS is super sticky. Well, yeah, that's what the SS stands for. There are times though when I'm like, no, just anyway. And so I waited for my kit to get here, and I waited, and it didn't take as long as I thought it was going to. But while I was waiting, I did some more research on, okay, what is the difference between a square and a round? What is the difference between a full drill field and a partial? And I really I did a lot of researching about things that I didn't really know the difference of, when it said this or that. What are they talking about? So I would, I would go to the infinite portal of knowledge, as my uncle likes to call the internet, and I would do some research and find out. And watched a lot of unboxings and learned about AliExpress and Wish. And Julie, you say, how did you not know about Wish or AliExpress or any of these other locations before this past summer? I'm a reader, and I am not into socials much, and when I want to, I can kind of bury my head in the sand. I'm an observer of human behavior, and so I find people watching to be fascinating. But I don't do drama very much, aside from the drama that I get at work, which every day is a drama-filled day at work because of the type of people that I deal with. Not that they're addicts, but that they have an addiction, but that they have an addiction and they are in need of crisis services. So I don't want, I want to make it clear that the demographic that I deal with, I'm not talking about working with people who have an addiction specifically. I'm talking about people who have an addiction and are in crisis. So when I get home, I like to check it at the door. And I've always kind of been that way. I don't understand the need for drama. I don't understand what people get out of it. I mean, from a therapy basis, I guess I could do, but from a just, I don't have that reaction, so by that understanding, I don't get it. So started diamond painting, which is the newest of all the various crafts that I do. I crochet, I drink coffee. Yes, I've watched Miss Crochet and Coffee. I needlepoint. I sew. I paint. I do role play terrain. What's role play terrain, Julie? Well, that is another pastime of mine. I like role playing games like Dungeons and Dragons, or there are many, but Dungeons and Dragons tends to be the most commonly known, so that's the name I tend to throw out, and so that people understand what it is that I'm talking about. Or, you know, younger people, I'll say, well, it's like a video game. It's like Baldur's Gate, or, oh, yeah, as my son would say, my sell-by date is showing, but, Last of Us, Overwatch, there are 1,000 different types of role-playing video games. But what I do is tabletop role-playing. And so it's a bunch of people who, well, a bunch, 4 to 6 people who get together and roll up characters for a specific system and play those characters. And there is combat in role-playing games, and that combat usually needs a map so that you know how far you are away from whatever big bad that you're fighting. And in some systems there is flanking and facing, and it can get very technical, and I've done it for 20 years, so I don't know how much of it is knowledge that I have accrued over time and how much of it is, you know, easy to follow. So I'm not going to go too deep into the technical things. But the maps that I mentioned for combat, and also just for to set the scene for your players, even if no combat is gonna happen, it's called terrain. Just like terrain for miniature railroad, miniature trains. Same kind of idea. In fact, a lot of the same skills and materials are used to do the terrain for role playing. So, let's see, crocheting, diamond painting, terrain, sewing, needlepoint. But my best friend only does counted cross stitch, and then she doesn't even do beaded counted cross stitch. Although I've never done a beaded counted cross stitch either. I've got a couple that I want to start, but she only does counted cross stitch, whereas I can embroider and do counted. I can do stamped. I can quilt. I had the fortune of having a great-grandmother who knew how to do a lot of these things, and when I showed interest in learning, she showed me how to do. And then what she couldn't show me, because she died when I was 13, my skill progressed a bit slower, but my skill progressed from doing and from researching, or having somebody that I did know that I met later in life that I found out, oh, hey, you do this craft? Well, show me how to do this, or show me how to do that. To her credit, she also taught me how to knit. I hate it. It doesn't move fast enough for me, which is kind of funny given that when I diamond paint, I do it one stone at a time, one drill at a time, regardless of a faster method. But yeah, no. It doesn't move fast enough for me, or it didn't as a child. And if I didn't notice dropping a stitch right away, well, those of you out there that knit know what happens. Those of you who don't, let's just say you're going to have a big hole in whatever you're working on that's going to continue to unravel. That's kind of frustrating because at least with crocheting, you if you miss a stitch, or you notice it before long, and B, you can go back and fix it. But mainly as a kid, it was just that it didn't move fast enough for me. And I taught as much as I could to any of my children who wanted to learn, but my daughter was probably the one that wanted to learn the most, and she crochets beautifully. She also knits. She knits a whole lot more than I ever did, and does beautiful work. And she crochets better than I do now too. And that's not to say that I am bad at it, because I'm not. I don't do it as much as she does, so the skill gains are a lot less. So back to diamond painting and then streaming. So it wasn't until I started diamond painting and getting home very late at night meant that I get off at midnight, so I don't get home till 1-ish. And then by the time I change my clothes and have something to eat, it's very, very late or early, depending on your perspective. And there isn't really anybody around to talk to when I'm diamond painting. And could I diamond paint before work? Yeah, I could. And oftentimes, if I don't have something that I absolutely have to do, I'll get a little bit in. Not as much as I would like to, but then I'm an essential employee, so I can't say that I've been able to, stay home and diamond paint the way some have been able to, and I don't, resent that, but I think it would have gotten old very, very quickly, because I enjoy working. I love what I do. I went to school for what I do, but when I was thinking, so anyway, I started watching WIP Chat specifically, because I would put it on when I wanted to work on something, and there wasn't anybody around to talk to, and I'd listen to just about all the music I could listen to. I like music, but after a while it gets to the point where I still, you're listening to music and it's enjoyable to listen to, but there's no community in listening to music. So I have, my favorite streamers that I watch, and who they are may or may not be something I talk about at some point, but that was not my goal for tonight, except to say that Miss Crochet and Coffee did a WIP Chat challenge. And once everybody had done their WIP Chats, and I was, from watching people and putting on WIP Chat when I would be working, I liked the idea that of giving back some of what I enjoy so much. And while, WIP Chats aren't, or, streaming in general, are not consumable, and so they don't get used up, having new creators certainly can't hurt, but I still wasn't sold on it. I didn't know, what do I have to offer that nobody else has to offer, or what do I have to offer that people might enjoy? And while I do have stories about my job, those are probably not going to come out all that often. Just for, I think that one of the worst possible things that you could do is to be in a situation where it is your job, your profession, to listen to and advise someone. And then you go home and start telling their stories to other people, telling other people what's going on in their lives. Yeah. Confidentiality is a thing, but even if it weren't, it just doesn't seem like a very nice thing to do. So you may hear, I had a client once who did blah, or went into work today and realized, oh goodness gracious, it's a full moon and you can tell, or something to that degree. But so I do have those stories to tell, which I'm probably not going to tell many of, and certainly not to a level that anybody hearing it would go, oh, she's talking about me specifically. If that were the case, I just would feel really bad about that. Although it should be noted that there are certain behaviors that are consistent with people who have an addiction or people who have suffered trauma. And so when I say, adult children of addicts are often this way or that way or this other way, that's going to be true for a good portion of them. And so in some senses you'll be, oh, she's talking about me. That may be not, I'm not talking about you specifically, but you may have experienced something that I am commenting on, and as a whole, and feel that it resonates with you, for lack of a better term. Wow, and I am just tangenting all over the place because I have tried 6 different times to tell you what I want to provide and why I finally decided to do this. So I was on the fence. Yes, I like the idea of giving back to the community that I enjoy so much. And that's still true. That certainly isn't untrue. But, like I said, it's not a consumable thing, and I don't know that I am any more or less, well, I know I am certainly not more, and probably in some degrees very less skilled at diamond painting specifically, but any number of the crafts that I do than anybody else. So it's not just that I craft. I do have, an interest in being a part of the community, but I don't have to be a creator to be a part of the community. Which brings me back to Miss Crochet and Coffee's WIP Chat challenge. And her posting the playlist of the people that had submitted for it. And I didn't submit because I hadn't decided if I was going to do the creator thing yet. I hadn't decided one way or the other. I was still considering and thinking, and because there were a couple of things that were super important to me. And one is that if I did stream, I wanted to be consistent about it. So I wanted to make sure that I had the ability to be consistent. And if I say that I am going to, post 2 videos a week, then by golly, I want to post 2 videos a week. So consistency was important to me. And I don't have a whole lot of time. I have a family. I have housework. I mean, who doesn't have housework these days? The house never seems to stay clean, even though I feel like I'm never here, which is also not true, but it feels that way sometimes. So, and the second video on the playlist came up, and I watched it and listened to it and went, I love all those ideas about it. It was Becky's Madness for Crafting, and she talks about how her father died when she was young, and wishing she had that voice, that she'd heard his voice once, but wanting to leave, a place where her children, after she passed, not that she's ill or anything, but, just after she died, that her kids would have a place to listen to her, because she didn't have that when her dad died, and she wished she did. And I could resonate, that resonated with me, because while I am God and COVID willing, not anywhere close to checking out. My children are older. In fact, 2 of them have moved out, and the other 2.5 aren't far behind. I say 2.5 because I have an autistic son, and currently he still lives with myself and my husband. I don't know that he will ever be high functioning enough to live by himself, but I don't think that living just with me and my husband after all the other kids move out will be enough social interaction for him. So who knows? We'll see. But as of right now, 2 of them have moved out, and the others aren't far behind, with the exception of my youngest, who is 15 and in his first year of high school. They're all grown. And it wasn't so much, that they have recordings of me to listen to after I'm gone, so much as it is having the ability to, when they're missing me, especially, given this crazy schedule that I work, when they're missing me, to be able to hear my voice and hear about what's going on in my life, and I talk to them all on the phone, but, they have lives of their own, and they don't always have time when I have time to talk. So, that was a main thing, a main reason. The other main reason was because I have noticed through this COVID situation how much I really get back from interacting with people. And I haven't had a whole lot of people to interact with the exception of my family. And you say, but Julie, you're still working. You're still going to work every day. And that's right, I am. But I am in the state of New York, about 60 miles or so northwest of New York City. And New York State's admission guidelines for detox and crisis have been so I'm looking for a word. They have been made far more stringent than they were prior to Corona. And a lot of the inpatient facilities for addiction treatment are not taking new people unless they stand to overdose and die or die from detoxing. And, a lot of people aren't aware, but there's only 3 substances that you can die just from withdrawal. And that's alcohol, benzos, and barbiturates. Anything else may make you feel like you're gonna die, or if you have, underlying medical conditions, heart problems, and things like that, that can lead to death due to the underlying medical problems you have. But just from just withdrawal, those are the only 3 substances that will kill you. And then it's not a guaranteed that you're going to die if you withdraw without help from them, but it's a possibility. So, our admission guidelines are much, much more stringent. And because they are, and because a lot of the inpatient facilities in our area just aren't taking people anymore, we haven't had a whole lot of clients. And those patients or clients that we have had have gone in and out pretty quickly. Once they had safely detoxed, they were on to the next part of their treatment, be it, inpatient or outpatient. So I was feeling, and still am to some degree, although we have 2 whole clients, and it's the most number of clients we've had since this whole state went on mandatory lockdown. So I'm kind of excited, and I'm hoping that this is the sign that this is going to be over soon, because I have had just about as much as I can handle of this whole COVID thing. And I'm sure those that have had to stay home and are homeschooling their kids and whatnot are right up there with me. At least I get to get up and go to work, which I do enjoy, or did, before the pandemic. and I do enjoy interacting with my patients when we do have them. Um, but when we don't have them, they have cut staffing down where there used to be 2 counselors and a nurse at bare minimum on every shift but the overnight. Now, there's only 1 counselor and 1 medical person on every shift. And um, with the need for masks and gloves and whatnot, the nurse tends to stay in her workspace and I tend to stay in mine because it's less possibility that we're going to contribute to, or not contribute, that we're going to contaminate anything with the other person in the other person's workspace. And of course, we're washing our hands frequently, and following all the precautions, which makes everything just a little bit harder. That said, the isolation is getting to me, and because my work schedule is at odds with my husband's work schedule, when he gets up for work in the morning, I haven't been asleep for more than a couple hours. I leave before he gets home, and then by the time I get home, he is in bed because he has to be up for work the next day. I work on the weekends, he's off on the weekends. We knew this was gonna be a thing when I took the job. We, however, did not know that COVID was going to be a thing and we would have to essentially shelter in place and be quarantined. He also works in the health field, just not in the same place, or nor does he do the same thing. He actually works at a hospital. But we had no way of knowing that COVID was coming, and or that it was going to last as long as it has lasted. I'm not quite sure where I put my drills, and my tray is almost empty. So I'm gonna finish up what I'm saying and then get on out of here. But because we both had to go to work, and by the time I get home, everybody is asleep, I've really needed that interaction and community. I have friends that I enjoy spending time with, and I am keeping in touch with them, but that being a part of a community, one of the reasons we moved to the house that we did was because there was a close-knit community in the area that we moved, and we were here a month, not even, a couple weeks, and then everybody had to lock down for the virus. So it's been interesting. So yeah, that's getting to know me a little bit. I apologize for the tangents. Those will probably be pretty common. I do have fibromyalgia, and as such, sometimes I can't remember words for certain things, or it takes me 20 minutes to explain a very simple concept because I can't figure out how to get the information across without, no, I just can't figure out how to get the information across in a way that is quick, concise, and easy to understand. Um, it gets worse the more tired that I am, so that doesn't bode well for you folks because I tend to diamond paint and craft and whatnot after I get home from work. Um, is that just to say that every video will happen then? No, probably not. I want to do unboxings and I want to do techniques. Um, I don't know what else I want to do, but I know that content is important. Probably will be quite some time before I start doing a live, and even so, it's going to be at a weird time because I work when I work. And while there is always, you guys can watch the replay, the whole point of doing a live is being able to interact with people differently than you would with an uploaded video. You know, I tend to think most people are not awake when I'm awake, and that's okay, but that's just why you won't see a live from me for at least the near future. Moving forward, we'll see. So, if you like this video and you want to get to know me a little bit more, find out who this Julie person is that won't even use her real name, hit the subscribe button, like, and toss a comment down below. Also, let me know what you're working on and what type of crafting you do. Alright, that's it for me, guys. I'm headed for bed. Night.